This whole episode is a toot your horn, so.
It is, because we're damn good at what we do. That's why people love us.
Welcome back to Muse on the Mic. I'm Riley.
And I'm Emily. Thanks again, guys, for joining us on another awesome episode of Muse on the Mic. We're so glad to have you back. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can find all our social media to follow us and see what we're up to below in the description. Join us on Patreon for sure, because every Wednesday you get an extra episode and something special on Sunday nights. Riley, what are we chatting about today? Tell everybody.
We're diving into a bit of a business topic. It was a tweet we saw from Twitter, obviously. Ho-Sun Chung tweeted about branding, logo recognition, and it really spoke to us because, I mean, obviously we can go back to starting our company and wanting to have a recognizable brand or build a brand. And yeah, let's just read the tweet and talk about it a bit.
I love it. You know what? It's not often on this pod that we've really dove into the entrepreneurial side of our
Right.
lives because we're always talking about the sexy stuff. But if you ask me, this stuff is sexy too because we both get off on this shit. It is exciting. If you have that kind of a business brain, it gets your juices flowing. And so why not dive into a bit of the science and the psychology behind what makes a brand? And this thread in particular talks about the evolution and how things have changed over the years, over the decades, and some pretty recognizable brands. And if
Yeah.
I don't say so myself, where's my trusty horn? Toot, 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 right? Our brand has stood the test of time, and reading through some of these markers, I was like, nailed it. Done. Check. Evolved that too. We got this. We
Yeah.
got this. And it's, in my opinion, the most recognizable brand in the massage parlor industry. And probably, at least as far as I know, the only parlors that have an actual logo, branding, a stylized look that carries on through, what, 15 years now. So
Yeah. Yeah.
let's dive into
But
this
you
thread.
know what? What's interesting to me, even listening to you say this, is because I think back then, almost 16 years ago now, when we were creating our logo, I mean, we're some pretty smart cookies, but at the same time, we weren't leading with, the thought of branding too deeply. It was visual
Right.
to us and what we liked, and we didn't want to make it too suggestive. But we really did hit all the marks with, I think, without that kind of back thought of what we actually need to do. And we really nailed it. So
We
I
really
don't know about
did.
it. Yeah.
It's so good. I'm so excited about it. I mean, of course, we're cocky about it, but I love when a great idea works out. And I love when it has more layers of longevity or more depth to it than it originally planned or even thought about because you can't predict the future, right? Who knew some of
Yeah.
this was coming? And ours stands the test of time, and I'm convinced it will stand for many, many, many years to come. So
Yeah.
let me read a bit of this. We're going to show you all on the screen too so you can follow along and catch the visuals of some of these brands that they're showing. And we're going to compare with ours because we can. All right, let's go. So notice how logos recently all kind of look the same, not because it makes them look better, but because of this psychological trick that manipulates your brain. That's why Google, Microsoft, and Airbnb are all doing it. Here's the full explanation in a thread. So look closely at these new logos. As you can see, kind of the side-by-side comparison here. They're not just similar, they're starting to look eerily similar. Sans serif fonts, basic shapes, limited colors. It's like they're all following the same hidden playbook. But why? The answer lies in human psychology. Our brains process visuals 60,000 times faster than text. And here's the fascinating part. The simpler the visual, the faster we process it. And this is why companies are racing to simplify their logos. But there's more to this story. ... Let me pause there because let's show our logo for the spa. It is as simplistic could possibly be. And I remember the conversation. I remember that day in Starbucks when we were
Mhm.
sitting with our first web designer, our first graphics guy, and planning it out, our opening our books, having the same idea in mind by sheer genius coincidence, and loving how simple it was. It
Yeah.
wasn't something that like some graphic designer was going to have to spend weeks designing or like tweaking and figuring out, layers of it, or how's this contrast and how's this shading and blah, blah, blah. It was just straight up simplistic.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from both of us having a corporate background in the
Mhm.
environments that we did for the companies that we'd worked for in the past, all of which have very simplistic logos, if you think
Right.
about it, right? Our inspiration came from our corporate upbringing. And there was genius behind all those brands. All of those companies are still in existence now.
Mhm.
And listen, I don't watch necessarily or tune in to everything that they're doing, but I see their logos around, and come to think of it, they are a little bit simplified from even back
Mhm.
then. And I don't want to say, again, we knew the future. We didn't,
Mhm.
but we had such a clear idea of what we did want. And I feel like it reminds me all the time of like the golden arches of McDonald's. It
Yeah.
was that simple. The Playboy bunny of Playboy. You don't even need the word. You see the
Yeah.
bunny and you know. You see the golden
Yeah.
arches on the highway and you know. And that to me is a successful branding mission for any business, because that has
Mhm.
longevity, that has a multitude of implications. You could put that on a t-shirt just as much as you could put it in a PowerPoint presentation,
Yeah.
and it will read just as well and just as recognizable. And
And I
RM is
yeah.
famous.
And I remember when we started to veer a little bit in that initial meeting that you were talking about. I think we knew we were in a sexy industry, let's face it. And I think
Right.
we were trying to think, should we sex it up a bit? And I don't know if you remember this. We were going to put on one of the edges of the M's a high heel, which is very,
Right.
cliche in our industry. Like it makes sense. And we quickly strayed away from it because to us it was just simplified. Let's just keep it that anyone can walk around with a business card and don't have to worry about being discreet with it. It doesn't have anything
Right.
too suggestive to the industry.
Well, and I think the discretion required in our industry weighs in our favor in that regard, right? Because you're right, the heel made it very like girls, girls, girls,
Mhm.
and Vegasy and like the strip. And it would get the point across maybe a little quicker than what is Muse or what's that M. And yet our M is like a secret club, because if you know, you know.
Yeah. Well,
And
you
people
know
walk
what's
up
so
to us,
funny?
right?
There's so many stories I could share with you guys where whether I'm wearing one of our toques or a shirt or anything that we have on, I've had even partners of mine wearing it and being like, I remember vividly one gentleman in particular was like, went up to this guy and was like, do you know what you're wearing? And he's like, I know what I'm wearing. Do you know what I'm wearing? He's like, I know what you're wearing. Like it's just that recognizable, especially between the guys when they wear it. I often am like, if I'm out in public, I wear it with pride, of course. But I'm like,
Right.
I know someone in here knows exactly what this is.
It's such a secret club. It's the
Yeah.
fight club of rub and tugs, right? And you're right. Like, if you know, you know, and you're in it, you'll recognize it a mile away. There's almost that like cheeky recognition, like that
Mhm.
guy said, like, do you know? Do you know? Do you? Like, but if you know, you can be like, I
Yeah.
got you in the grocery store and
Yeah.
just mosey along. And yet, other people in the same circle of conversation would be none the wiser. They'd
Of
be
course.
like, nice
Yeah.
hat.
Hmm.
And
For
I
sure.
love that because there isn't the little heel on it or anything that says anything. It doesn't even say massage. Like it doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
It's just the M in the circle, and it's so again, just I can't resist. Let's continue. So, take Google's evolution. 1999, it was complex with a shadowed text. It was in 2010, glossy with a 3D effect. I think I remember that one the most, to be honest, like from like historical thought.
Okay.
2015, it was flat sans serif font, and each iteration got progressively simpler. And I'll show a couple little images here of like the kind of the evolution of Google and how simple. It's so clean and simple now. It's so
Mhm.
easy. So next tweet says 42% of consumers perceive brands with modernized logos as more trustworthy. Microsoft followed a simple path. It removed all the gradients, it eliminated the shadows and the depth, and it switched to basic geometric shapes. But the real genius, these weren't just aesthetic choices. These changes were driven by the digital revolution. Logos today need to work across dozens of platforms. Think tiny app icons, social media profiles, website headers, and that's just online. The rise of wearables like Apple Watches and such accelerated this trend. Complex logos break down once you shrink it to small sizes. Gradients become muddy, detailed illustrations become a blur, fine text becomes unreadable. And this is why, for example, Airbnb made a controversial decision in 2014. Let's pause there for a moment too, because there has been teeny tiny changes in our logo since the very first one. And there are definitely times where we have the word Muse under the M, and there are
Mhm.
times where it's completely unnecessary and it's just the M in the circle. But the word Muse itself in our original logo had a gradient ombre effect from top to bottom. I mean, the
Mhm.
word was so tiny, it was so slight. It probably changed by 2 shades. It wasn't like a drastic
Mhm.
gradient or ombre at all. And I don't even think it was a conscious effort. I think it's each time we've upgraded like our website or changed to a new designer that that word became simpler. But everything else been able to maintain all, like we didn't have to take away a 3D effect. We didn't have to take away anything because it was
Mhm.
already damn perfect. Sorry, Google, you're behind. Like, get with the program because we were with our little rubber tug, and that wouldn't have been possible with, for example, the high heel or how we originally
Right.
wanted some cursive or something like that. That on, I don't want to reveal too many of our marketing things that we do kind of small, but like if that were to be on a pen,
Right.
that would lose all, everything, all the fanciness would go away because on a pen it's what the size of like an eraser, like
Mhm.
the tip of a pencil, like it's tiny, and you would lose all that stuff, whereas we could put that circle on anything, especially things that are circular, and it just works so fucking well. I love it. And we didn't have to make many changes. It literally has had that kind of longevity that it just works on any, again, t-shirts, on big giant banners, on you
Yeah.
name it, and that M just kind of fits. I think it's fantastic.
I think there's a bit of intrigue too for those that, I mean, I feel now, 16 years later or close to, we are a recognizable brand, especially to those in the know. But for
Yeah,
those that don't, I think there's a level of intrigue of like, well, what does that M mean? Like, it's
right.
just, it doesn't tell enough, but it gets them intrigued to want to know.
I mean, that was the whole point of naming it Muse too, right?
Right.
And I remember at the beginning some people being a little confused by that word. I don't know if you remember. I'm gonna
I
tell a
did.
little fun story. We used to have, he was a bit of a crank caller, but still a legit client who does come in, and he had trouble pronouncing it. And he would call us and be like, Moosey, like sing song it every time. And we were like, what the fuck are you
Like,
talking
we're not a
about?
moose, bro.
So weird. And yet, anyone that knew anything about art, music, actresses, like anything artistic whatsoever, anything that humans have created, every like artist out there has an inspiration, a muse, and it's
Right.
always based on a woman. A woman is always in the female tense. And so anyone that knew it was like genius. Like you guys are so smart because again, it was suggestive without being so literal. And then the M made sense. The M makes sense even for massage. Like it is a
Right.
multi-layered
True.
simplistic thing that came together, but in my head I will never forget Moozy. I just
It's
want
just
to punch him.
pronouncing the E.
It was so stupid. Like it's the easiest word in the world. Why you make it so hard, bro? Okay, so back to Airbnb.
Mhm.
They scrapped their casual script font for the bellow symbol, a simple continuous line forming a unique shape. The internet erupted in mockery, comparing it to various body parts, but Airbnb knew something that critics didn't. I think that's so funny because
Hmm.
we get bombarded. Their old logo was failing in the digital age. It was hard to animate, ineligible at small sizes, inconsistent across various platforms. It was difficult to remember. The new logo, despite initial backlash, solved all of these problems. And here's where it gets interesting. The human brain has a preference for simple shapes. We're hardwired to remember straight lines over curves, circles over complex polygons,
Hmm.
basic patterns over intricate designs, and 75% of consumer perceptions are influenced by simple shapes and colors. And then they show this color chart. And I fucking love the color chart. Because again, you and I didn't talk about the impact of red, but when we sat down, we both were like, black and red? Like, it's
Hmm.
just like,
And I don't think
okay,
red's either of our
same.
favorite colors. It just
No,
it made
it
sense.
is now. It is now, but it wasn't. I don't think either of us even owned a red lipstick at that point. Like, we weren't red people. But lo and behold, we're even picky if a new web guy tries to change the red. We're like, that's not a red, you know. We're very defensive of our red because it's very particular.
I guess it's
It's not the
passive to
first,
us.
right? It's not the first red you select on TikTok. Like, it's
Right.
different. And so, under the red category here, red stands for love and creativity, action, passion, energy, excitement, strength, adventure, and love. I couldn't
Perfect.
think of a better list for Muse.
Hmm.
It's just so good. I won't toot the horn again, but
This whole episode is a toot your horn, so.
it is. It is because we're damn good at what we do. That's why people love us. Anyways, they needed logos that could be instantly recognizable, cut through the noise, work at any size, be memorable, and load online quickly. This led to unexpected consequence. This trend is not slowing down. More companies are simplifying their logos every year. Because in a world of infinite content, shrinking attention spans, simplicity isn't just beautiful, it's survival. And
Yeah.
I love this list that they show of these like side by side
Hmm.
changes to Burger King, to Warner Brothers, to Lay's potato chips, like you name it. They have all gotten simpler. They turned from almost like a cartoon graphic
Hmm.
to an actual flat logo. And I think it's so smart. It's so much more impactful,
Hmm.
memorable, and like, not that I remember every single one of these, but they're almost the kind of thing if I knew how to draw, someone was like, close your eyes and draw Dunkin' Donuts, I'd be able to do it because it's that simple. Like it's
Right.
the VW of Volkswagen, everybody knows it, right?
Hmm.
The swoosh of Nike, that's easy to draw. Like you
Yeah.
literally, it's in your brain implanted that this equals this. Again, as long as I can draw a pretty decent circle, good to go with Muse.
Yeah. Actually, Nike's a really good one that's really stood the test of time as well.
For real, right? But again, in the 80s, it had some shading. There was a
Hmm.
3D-ness to it that was like the thing of the 80s too, right? But yet, any color, any size, anywhere. I remember I liked basketball a lot in my youth, and I had little like 23 and Nike Michael Jordan earrings. But even on a tiny little children's like gold earring, you knew that Nike swoosh a mile away. It just made sense.
Oh no.
You're never gonna guess what this 3D print is for. It helps you get down to the root to help make sure that your plant gets fully watered.
Oh my god, I knew there was going to be a problem the second I saw the 3D printer. At this point, these things are just printing my nightmares. I must have got tagged in this video like 700 times, and people kept saying that it looks like the top of the castle at Hogwarts, so it's fine. I guess I just don't watch those movies anymore. You know, you'd think that people would be smart enough not to let their potions cauldron turn into a goblet of fire, but 502, it's out of flare base, so I guess not. I wonder whose Horcrux that would have been. Alright, first off, that thing's porous. Who knows what's going to be sitting crisscross applesauce inside your lower GI tract. 1 minute you're fine, next you got 25 screaming mandrakes running around inside your Neville Longbottom. God, Professor Sprout would be rolling around inside her Hogwarts herbology hidey hole if she saw you right now. I swear, if I get woken up at 3 in the morning because you drunkenly decided to Wingardium Leviosa that thing and you let it slither in too far, I'm not going to be happy. I won't even transport you, I'll just let the Dementors have you. Well, please just do me a favor and keep that mandrake watering pot or plug away from your Dumble back door and just don't meet me
Just
like this.
don't. Yeah, I love that guy.
Cartoon porn. Who is that for? It's for you?
You're craving something a little extra, aren't you? Subscribe to our Patreon and enjoy the ride.
I mean, freehanding our logo is actually not that hard, and like replicating it, drawing it. I've done it with graphics programs. I know nothing about graphics design. I've done it with rhinestones because I have a bit of a bling business, and again, I could do that with shapes and sizes that aren't necessarily my choice. It fits the item that I'm working on,
Mhm.
but yet I start it, and by the time I'm done, I'm like, oh, that was easy and perfect.
Mhm.
It just works no matter how you translate it. I've done it on cookies, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
It's actually that easy. And listen, if you can eat it and wear it, it's fantastic.
You know, it's so neat though. I'm just thinking about it because I mean, there might be variations of our logo that we haven't dabbled with over the years for different promos or different times of the year, but it
Definitely.
would never stray from too far from the original. And it's funny, just even making that M a capital M it would be a completely different company. It would not be
Yeah.
us. And it's that
Yeah.
it like to me that's quite interesting, like the psychology of that. Like even why did we gravitate to a lowercase? Because in thought, I would think I would gravitate to an uppercase. It's just more powerful, more strength, or like the capital,
Right.
you know? But in reality, it's the lowercase that has that lasting effect, at least with our brand.
For sure. It's funny. I dabble with that a bit when doing like captions on social media posts and stuff, because I always write, you can go on our website and see even the categories, like photos of the spa, photos of the
Mhm.
muses, location, whatever. It's all in our small lowercase font
Mhm.
because it stands out more than most people writing with capital letters and so on and so forth. And yet in text, when I write Muse capital letters because I want it to stand out instead of
Right.
getting lost in a paragraph. But even just that visual switch, I notice clients do it back because they'll respond to a tweet or an emails
Really?
and they'll write it in capital letters. And yet we have a couple of clients that bring us some branded items and they don't try to insert capital letters all of a sudden. They fully know what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And so the impact carries on. People could draw it with their eyes closed and make it make sense. They could
So
write
true.
about it in a paragraph and it is capitalized for recognition. It's
Yeah.
just so handy. I
Mhm.
love us. So good. So, the psychology behind these logo changes reveals something profound. In a world of information overload, simplicity wins. The way companies communicate with their customers is changing, but this principle extends far beyond just logos. There's another way that the most successful founders are simplifying their message to cut through the noise. They're building personal brands. Why? Because today people trust people, not the AI generated corporate speak that we've become used to. Here's what most founders miss, however. Building a powerful brand, personal brand, isn't about being everywhere. It's about being memorable, authentic, consistent, just like these simplified logos. Once you do that, you'll become the authority in your niche. It'll bring you sales, investors, top talent on autopilot. The
Mm.
end. And I think that is just freaking flawless because, yeah, look how many people come to us when they're trying to open a massage business and want consulting from us. Look
Mhm.
how many people come to us when they're in other parts of the world or other parts of the country and need information. Look
Right.
where competitors come to fuck around or to try to find the best employees or the best ideas. They plagiarize our stuff or try to poach our staff or whatever they're doing. I can't think of anything I'd want to take from any other massage business out there that I think is better than what we do. Full stop.
Agreed. Agreed. And it's interesting because even within our industry or where we are in Toronto, there's a lot of reputable spas other than Muse. Let's be
Yeah,
real. But you're right. None of them, not one, has a logo, which I
none.
find mind blowing. I mean, maybe they feel they don't need it. And who am I to talk about their business strategy? But I mean, business is business. I don't care what you're selling or what services you provide. Smart business is just business.
I think therein lies the difference, though, because it shows the intention. Most people that run rub and tugs run them as a cash cow. It is
Right.
just a means to an end to their financial desires. And for us, this is a full fledged business. We pay our taxes properly. I guarantee you none of them do. We do all of those things properly so that not just to help, both of us sleep at night, but it adds to our legitimacy. I think it to me adds to our ability to last longer in an industry that can often be high turnover. Listen, there are very few parlors that have been around for over a decade. There are many, 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 many that have come and gone in 5 years. You know what I mean? So
Right.
look at the bets that were put on us when we first opened. They thought 3 months we'd be tanked. So investing in those kind of things, whether it's financial or whether it's thought process, I think makes the difference. And it shows that we are dead serious about our business. To us, this is a full business, a full brand. And lo and behold, here we are on a podcast, expanding our personal connection, expanding on all of that, intimacy that clients get with us, that new staff applicants get with us, because they trust us, because they can listen to us, they can see us, they can DM and talk to us, they can come in and visit us. Like it's literally that simple, that smart, and that effective. And yet we didn't need a thread like this to teach us this. This is just what we do. This is just what we know. And I'll bring that back to both of our corporate upbringings, because we both worked for companies, learned sales techniques, management styles, all of those things that were built around those kinds of very same, not exact, but similar concepts. Things that keep their clients, their viewership, their membership, their, all of those things consistent, stable, and working the entire time, that many of these companies have been around well over a decade, some of them 2 and 3 decades long, right? And to be able to do that with the unexpected, which is an adult situation, a rub and tug, former sex worker, whatever, where they assume we're dumb and, useless, pretty much. Like here we are with not just a business, but an entire brand, a brand that has an umbrella, that has, all of these other little pockets kind of underneath, a podcast and many of the other things that we do, like education, workshops, all kinds of different things. And it's because of that trust that our brand has built that has gotten us to where we are. I mean, in our first 2 years, we were approached by people to start franchising, wanting to expand this across the country. Like other people in that sort of business knew that we were onto something immediately and approached us. I mean, we were startled by it, pleased, but startled by it, being like, wait, us? We're Robin Tug. Do you know what you're talking about? And yet we both looked at each other like, fuck yeah.
But back then, I don't know how we would respond to the question now, but that's a whole other episode. Our egos were so big, like there would be no price, sir, that we would ever franchise our business. Like we just have way too much ego.
100%. It's a very different conversation now. But you know what? There's a lot more, if we decided to ever do something like that, there's a lot more like skin in the game. There's a lot more legwork that's been done. There's an entire longevity of reputation. And I think that has more value than what we started with. What were people buying 2 years in? A great name and a fancy logo? Like, what is that? Now it's a whole existence. It's a whole ecosystem. It's a whole life form of itself. Muse is, alive and well. And to find people that want to invest in you and us to have the option to be like, abso-fucking-lutely not, is a very powerful business position to be in. And that, I mean, again, ego, but that has always made me very happy to be like, no, we don't need a third partner. Thank you, sir. Because it's always a sir.
Always.
We're not interested. We're good as we are. And yet leaves the door open for whatever we were to decide with whatever we want and whatever the future may hold. And I love that flexibility and freedom too, which a strong brand will always provide. Look at some of the best out there, Sandals, resorts, and Apple, anything with the apple with the bite. Like it's just smart business. And I love when people point out the smarts of simple business. And I will, as much as I, rang a little toot toot to McDonald's, I will give them a little bit of a on their decisions, because they removed the golden arches. They decided to become McCafe, turn all of their places brown. And now when you're driving down the highway, you have to wait for the little sign that says what your food options are, and a gas station this way. And you don't, from the top of the highway, when you're driving down, middle of nowhere, be able to see those tops of the arches from a bridge somewhere and be like, oh, McDonald, we got to pee. Let's stop here. and go over
Right.
and eat McDonald's when you're on a road trip. Like you do. You don't just stop to pee, you get some food. And I think it was one of the worst decisions that they ever made. It didn't impact their business. So I'm not saying that from a financial decision, but for something that you've put billions and billions of dollars into, been around since when did McDonald's open? Like the 60s or something, 70s? Like to be around that long, the most recognizable piece of your entire company is the golden, people called it the golden arches. They didn't even say the McDonald's thing, right? Like you didn't even call it McDonald's. It's Mickey D's. Like there's just certain things that you can't buy that from a company that does marketing. That is something that they built themselves. And to change that, it would be like Nike changing the swoosh or Playboy suddenly becoming like a horse instead of a bunny. And you'd be like, but why?
I think I agree with you for the most part, but I also think, especially with a company that's been around so long like McDonald's, and probably, let's face it, will be for a very long time, that there is things that can change, that it might have been a risky move, but let's face it, our kids or like that generation won't know any different. Like it does have, the company itself has that longevity. And I think going into coffee business, I'm sure you could always have gotten a coffee at McDonald's, but they've really heavily marketed that now, the breakfast section and the coffees and lattes, that really Starbucks and Tim Hortons are capitalizing on. That why wouldn't they want to take, they're already established in the burger. Like everyone knows the Big Mac. That I think they're not a stupid people. I'm sure there was like good reasoning behind it. It makes me curious though.
It's something along those lines. It was the rise of Starbucks, your Dunkin' Donuts, those kind of brands, Tim Hortons up here. And I get seeing another market take off, but I also am not a believer that everything needs to be everything to everyone. Like Walmart is, but at the same time, you don't need like a jewelry store doesn't need to sell shoes. Like just be what you are, right? If you want a burger, you go to McDonald's. You want a coffee, you go to Starbucks. I think it's as weird if Starbucks was suddenly to start making hamburgers. I'd be like, what made you so nervous? Like that was my first thought, was like, oh, are you feeling the pinch because so-and-so does better coffee now? And you're right. They had piss gross coffee before. I remember it from my years being a figure skater, when you go to the rink and it's the only thing open at 4 something in the goddamn morning. And my parents being like, because it was so gross. And then they upgraded their beans and blah, 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 free coffee day, dollar coffee day, all those things. Now everybody loves McDonald's coffee. But was it necessary? Again, I'm sure you're absolutely right. I'm positive in those meetings, they looked at the numbers and said, okay, we're going to make this change. But to me, I'm just like, but why? Like, why did you feel threatened by Starbucks? Because it didn't stop people from wanting your amazing French fries, for, trying to go in and get some ice cream and the machine's always broken. Like people go, if you want a nugget, you know where to get good nuggets, right? Like there are just some things that are staples. I don't know why you need to try, like you can make tacos. I mean, they have in the past, they tried pizza, they tried other things, but did it wipe out or beat Pizza Hut? No, it didn't. They stopped making pizza. So I just we've made bad decisions in business too, right? Not everything is a win. So I get it from like the logical standpoint, but from the consumer standpoint, I was like, oh, all that time and all that money for something you could see literally miles away.
Right.
What other brand has that? I mean, you don't see a Starbucks from miles away. You drive past it, you recognize what is it? Like the Statue of Liberty, siren looking thing, right? But I'm not looking for that when I'm in the middle of the open road driving down the I-95 on a road trip through the US. Like to me, it just doesn't make sense. I still think it's one of the weirdest changes, and a costly one at that, right? Because you're changing every sticker, every label, every napkin, remember the coffee stir sticks and the straws that had the M on the top, and it was like at the top of the spoon. Like you're literally changing absolutely everything about the most recognizable. It's like changing the name of the Big Mac. Like if you were like, oh, the double decker, I'd be like, what the fuck is that? You spent all this time teaching us it's a Big Mac. And other companies try to copy a double decker burger with the intent of being to like compete with the Big Mac. Just be a Big Mac. Like I don't get it. I don't get our competitors either. Like step up for ship out, right? Like let's play business ball. Like let's be serious. To me, I think it means that we take it more seriously, at least from a business standpoint. My 2 cents. My 2 cents. But I love this thread because it just jumped out to me immediately. And I was like, ooh, anyone watching who's into business, who's an entrepreneur themselves, who's tried to start a side hustle or anything, this shit is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And to watch the evolution and the changes of trends and how much little things influence massive changes is super fascinating. It's hard to stay on top of, but it's super fascinating. And it comes at you fast in this day and age.
Yeah. I agree.
Fun.
And I mean, the world is fast and, like I said, very visual. So, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
A green pea, I know I go to there to park. Like, they nailed that. But yeah, I think for those that know Muse is that recognizable. So again, pat on our backs for that one. But yeah, it was an interesting thought. Business is exciting. If you have that business mind, which we both do, I find it fascinating.
Absolutely. I love hearing entrepreneurs' ideas or how they've executed something genius or revolutionary or innovative. Listen, that was my favorite part of the pandemic was the innovation that came out of it because people get bored and then people get thinking. And when people get thinking, humans create some really amazing shit and a lot of stuff evolved. And yet there was a portion of things that went back to basics, right? People were making homemade bread and yet also starting a new company. Like it was a really cool era of time in amongst the chaos. And again, my business side geeked out on that. I was like, the amount of innovation coming out of this crisis is kind of incredible because it pushed everyone to that point that wouldn't have happened at the same time for millions and millions of people. That to me was the fascinating part is it wasn't just one new thing came out. It was like everybody is innovating. Everybody's looking for what's next. And when you push humans into a corner, we will figure it out. And I think it makes us, I guess, top of the food chain, but just in essence, we will figure out a way. And I think that rings true to Muse too. We always figure out a way.
I agree.
I love it. Well, guys, if you're business owners, if you're into this kind of stuff, let us know your thoughts too, or something cool you did in your business in the comments below. Or as always, send us a DM, like and share the video. And we'll see you guys next time on Muse on the Mic.
Bye, guys.
Bye.